Okay, so here's a behind the scenes on my 265 display tank system. We'll start over here on the left side of the system. We open up and we've got sort of the home built control panel here. It has all the DJ switches that I can flip on and off to control various things. At some point I'm going to go back and kind of trim out the edges. I have a spot here for my reef keeper when I finally get around to getting one of those. Went with the Brinks timers for all my halides and my actinics. I like the Brinks timers. They're pretty durable and easy to program. I did my panel so it just swings out here, and in the back you can kind of see I've got my ballasts for my halides. I've got those set up just to be on a wire rack that allows them to dissipate heat better. Also inside of this area we have my brine tank, which basically just came from a water softener. It holds 30 gallons. I've got my RO DI line plumbed into that with the shutoff valve here. So whenever I want to make RO water, I just plunk the valve on and get it to go. So here you can see I'm filled to the brim with my basically 30 gallons here of freshly made salt water. We've got the air stone in there to keep it aerated. We've got a heater, a couple different circulation pumps to keep it moving around. So I'll be ready to use this for a water change on demand. As far as the plumbing in the system goes, this valve right here, it comes off of the return pump. There's a manifold that makes this 90 comes up. I can control the amount of volume of water that goes to feed a surge tank, which is going to be located in a second floor closet. Coming down, we've got the AquaSea skimmer. This is the EV1000. As you can see, it's not set up right now. I've ran this tank for about 6 months without a skimmer at all, and so far so good. I may at some point go ahead and put a skimmer in. It just depends maybe on what we do in the future. So right now I'm all set up here with my bulkhead cut into my sump. This line would feed a pressure pump. That's another reason why I haven't set it up yet, because I'm saving a lot of money on not having the pressure pump run at 300 watts. That run up my bill quite a bit. So basically the only filtration I have are 3 overflows. 3 out of the 4 overflows they're all drains, and 3 of the 4 come into 100 micron filter sock, which fits onto each of the Spaflex lines, and then a second larger 100 micron filter sock fits over the top of all the 3. So you can see here I just use simple cable ties. I just reuse those over and over again. It's really easy just to slide this collar right off the Spaflex, pull that out, put a clean filter sock back in, and then set them up. I change these out about every 3 days, and you can see, I really don't clean the bottom of this. They're pretty much get almost no detritus buildup in this chamber here. So once the water from the overflows fills up the left side, we'll go over here. Now again, this is a 40-gallon acrylic sump. On this next chamber within the sump is completely packed with live rock, so the water pours over the top of the weir after it's been filtered. It's pretty much forced to go down and through all the rock. Then the baffle only has this small gap at the bottom, so all the water has to pass through the rock and comes up the baffle, and then it goes over the second baffle, and then there's another small gap where you can see the bubbles. We get some bubbles that kind of come up, but they just get either caught up in the bio balls here or they pop. There's the intake, and you can see there's basically no bubbles get to the intake. Works out pretty well. I've actually built this sump up on a platform because it gives me some fall. You can see here that this 2-inch line on top, this actually is a feed from the skimmer. So when the skimmer's actually plumbed in, I'm able to return some of the skimmer effluent to this live rock chamber, or I can actually send it back towards the second sump, which is another 40-gallon sump on the right, and there's actually a ball valve there that I can adjust to create more back pressure, so I can control how much skimmate is sent back to skimmer effluent is sent back to the each side of the sump. So what we have here is your reflow dart pump, and we've got a 1-inch line that comes right off the dart, shoots up with some unions into a manifold. The manifold's pretty simple. It's just reduces down to this line here, which this line will come up around and it feeds my activated carbon and my GFO. And then this line also goes back to feed the surge tank, which I showed earlier. This next line here is actually just a line that's connected to this bulkhead, and that's for an emergency overflow. So if something should happen, my siphon brake doesn't do the work, then the volume of water would reach that overflow, and both the left and the right sump are tied together with that, and it would be safely discharged to my basement sump pump and removed from the home. So that will avoid my sumps from overflowing. There's another line you can see back there. I think it's maybe a 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch line. That line comes off the manifold, and that's a waste line. So if I want to do a water change, there's actually a valve at the end of that line that I can open up, and I can waste down my sump water that way. So then we go over to the right side. Here on the right side, this line is just the feed that comes out of the GFO, and it just dumps it here into the sump. This side of the sump, I've got just a simple gravity or a mechanical float valve, and then my top off line, the RO comes into that. I've kind of set what my normal level is. Again, another intake strainer that ties in between the two sumps together, feeds the pump. Here I just keep a heater. I noticed that my heater, my water temperature stays pretty stable. Just running one heater, we were able to keep it plenty warm. Got a few more rocks in there that I plan on doing some other things with later. This then is fed from a baffle system. This side will actually be my refugium at some point. Again, the water is forced under. See my little snowflake there. Comes up, back over to the bubble trap in this area, and then comes back in. So again, very few bubbles really are entering this area. The only time that I'll only get any bubbles in my display tank is if this gets too low and I don't have my reservoir on. Here's my snowflake thinking he's going to get fed today. This is a refugium. It's just a snowflake eel refugium at the moment. What I did with the lines, though, is pretty common. A lot of people will take both the overflow holes, bulkheads, and instead of plumbing a return line up inside, both of those are drains. So, again, using Spa Flex, it's a little bit cheaper than the vacuum hose, but still gives you some flexibility. So the Spa Flex goes back to the other end to feed the filter socks, downstream there, and then the fourth drain actually comes back to feed another filter sock on this, what will be eventually the refugium side. So right now I've got just a lot of rubble rock in there. Again, there's the valve that can control how much skimmer effluent is dumped into this half of the tank once the skimmer is actually online. And my eel's acting like I haven't fed him in a while, but trust me, he gets plenty to eat. So if we were to look at just the plumbing design, again, it's pretty simple, using the two 40-gallon sumps that are plumbed together with the reflow dart. The 1.5 inch discharge from the dart pretty much goes straight up, which as we go up the tank and then to the top, here you can see this is actually the T. So the discharge from the reflow comes up to a single T that breaks left and right, and then each side feeds another T And you can see with this tee that it actually comes up higher than the level of the aquarium. And the reason why is because these additional tees then are at a 45-degree angle with a sweeping 45, which, you know, gravity will help push some of that flow with less resistance. I've got valves back there just to help if I want to choke this off and push more flow to other outlets, I can. I've just got some lock line fans that are you know, screwed in to those bushings there. And again, the left side's the same as the right. So as I go back up, you know, I've brought these up more towards the front to allow more flexibility in where I place the fans. As we look at the main line, then it comes back here, and then I've got a couple of 45s. One's like what they call a street 45, so it's got a slip end, and then the other end has a socket. But those basically just turn down and feed the eductors. So the eductors, as you can see, I've covered those in like an epoxy. They've been rolled in aragonite sand, and they're starting to core line up a little bit. Then you come down, and you can see that about halfway down the middle of the tank, where I've got another little 45 elbow, and then I've got the lock line pin ductor, and the pin ductor is connected there. Again, it's about halfway down the tank. And then as we look back here in this corner is really flushed out really well by the pin ductor. So there's some growth back there, but there really isn't anything, you know, any detritus that's built up. So as you see, a lot of it gets pushed more towards the front of the tank, and it keeps the back of the tank where all the rock work is at. It keeps it, you know, really clean. And there's, you know, sometimes the powder blue likes to get back in this little chamber and swim against the current of the pin ductor. Seems like he really enjoys that. So again, both sides are the same in terms of the plumbing. So you've got, you know, this tee that feeds these lock lines, and then on this side it's just the same thing. Another tee that feeds the lock line. Again, using gravity to kind of flow down into the pin ductor. Starting to core line pretty well on this side, a little better than the other side. You know, the original design, I had these pin ductors going all the way down to the bottom, but I changed that because, you know, that's a lot of pressure for them to be pushing against. A lot of, you know, a lot of more pressure, static pressure at the bottom, as opposed to coming halfway up the tank. There's a lot less there. So again, if I can kind of show down in there, obviously it's a bare bottom tank, but that glass is relatively clean in the area where the pin ductor's pointed. And it does a really good job, again, of blowing the stuff up to the front, where I can use a siphon and kind of siphon that out to keep the bottom really, really clean. So, you know, that's about it really for the, you know, the plumbing. It's very, very simple. You know, for flow, I just have this one modded maxi jet for now, and then the lock line fans. And, you know, I move the fans around every couple of days to kind of change the flow patterns in the tank, and that seems to work pretty well. I get decent shimmer lines that I'm happy with. So, you know, the only thing I may do differently is on the lock line is actually come up here and put a T in and then run another fan off each branch. So that would basically double from the 4 outputs that I have now. I'd have 8 outputs. And the idea would be that each branch would have one fan that's more pointed down and one that's pointed up, so that I get more surface disruption and gas exchange, but I'm still, you know, getting some kind of circulation. The next steps really will be to add the surge tank, and once I get the surge tank finally tuned, then we'll investigate, you know, perhaps adding a Vortec MP40, you know, just again to maximize the flow in the tank and keep things clean. So far, as far as corals go, I'm really happy with just some softies. This Gorgonian has really hung in there for quite a while, and to me looks beautiful in terms of the polyp extension and just its overall health. Core line growth has just exploded. You know, the rock wall, I think, to me was totally, you know, worth the time and the investment, and now that it's really growing in well, I'm very pleased with how that's come out.